Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Lake Forest November 2nd, 2021 regular city council meeting to order. Let the record reflect the Councilmember Motazedi will be teleconferencing tonight. Votes this evening will be recorded using the city's electronic voting system with Councilmember Motazedi voting by roll call. Madam Clerk, have we received any public comments for closed session?
We've received no in-person public comments or requests to speak, but I am going to check with our virtual waiting room. We do have one person waiting. So I'm going to say, if there are any speakers joining us this evening virtually that would like to speak under public comment on any of the closed session items, please raise your virtual hand on life size. The City Council will listen to your comments as soon as I unmute you. Once I unmute you, you will need to unmute yourself. Once you start speaking, the timer will begin. At this time, there was no one with their hand raised.
Well, thank you for listening online, and at this time, the City Council will recess for a closed session for the purpose of conducting regular city business. Thank you. Stand by. Well, good evening. At this time, I'd like to reconvene the Lake Forest City Council meeting, November 2nd, 2020, to back into session for public matters. We have a special guest coming for invocation would be Pastor Steve from Lake Forest Calvary Chapel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for
It's
blessing.
that would be in our favor and supporting us as a city, and I'm so thankful for all of you that have served our city so well and will continue doing over the years. Would you bow your hearts with me as we open in prayer? Heavenly Father, we are overwhelmed with thankfulness. Lord, thankfulness for your faithfulness to us as a people, as a city, as family, as individuals. And Lord, we ask, Father, for wisdom for our city council members as they seek to lead us and guide us as a people, as a community, to move forward, and the decisions they will be making will affect our lives, our families, for
Mike.
show us your favor and your grace and your goodness. Lord, we as a nation need you as well. And so, Lord, we come as one city and one state, and we pray for our one country. We ask that you would somehow unite us. We're a divided people, and our values have shifted and away from our moorings and our foundations. Lord, we ask that you would help us as a people to have values that would honor you and put you as priority in our lives. And Lord, we just pray a blessing on all those that are serving tonight. that you would bless their family, that you would bless their own lives, their own businesses. Lord, thank you for these servants. And Lord, we pray all these things in the name of our Savior and your Son. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Steve. God bless you. Thank you. At this time, it brings us to the Pledge of Allegiance for Councilman Mark Teddemer. But Councilman Teddemer, there's boys from Lake Forest Boy Scout Troop 639, if you would so allow them. Boys, if you could please come forward and bless us with a Pledge of Allegiance to the greatest nation in the face of this earth. Go ahead, talk into the mic, guys. You have to talk into the mic and ask us to start.
3, 2, 1.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Guys, why don't you quickly tell me your name? Want to talk into the mic?
My name is Caleb.
My name is Chancellor.
My name's Oliver. My name is Luke.
We come from PAC 639.
Thank you guys for being here tonight. God bless you guys, and I hope to see you at your Eagle Court of Honor, okay?
Thank you.
Guys, thank you for coming.
Thank you. God bless you.
Bless you as well.
There's no action to report tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Student liaison report, but I'd like to make a mayor's privilege. Do we have the council or the representative for El Toro High School here? Please come forward. We're going to put you in front because we might be jumping off and we want to get you in and out because I heard you guys have some great news for us, so come tell us about it.
Thank you.
You can remove your mask while you're at the mic. Thank you so much.
Hello, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Natasha Quinn, and I'm a junior representing El Toro High School. For starters, I'd like to apologize. I wasn't here last month because I was at a volleyball game. Last Saturday, we played and won against the undefeated Santiago Sharks. For the first time ever in El Toro history, our girls volleyball team has won CIF championships.
Yay!
Now, the team will be taking their game to the state championships. Speaking of CIFs, El Toro's football team will also be competing for the title against Summit High School this Friday. At our last Pink Out themed game against our rivals, the Trabuco Hill Stallions, we had an amazing turnout of both student and parent supporters. At this game, the Bullring made history as we showcased the first ever Lightwave halftime show. The Lightwave app, created by El Toro students, was designed to sync with supporters' cell phone flashlights and create an amazing light show that lit up the night. Speaking of sports, I wanted to give recognition to Darla Mendina, our Athlete of the Month. Darla runs on ET's cross-country team, and her biggest accomplishment so far is getting 4th place at state with her team sophomore year. She loves running because it's something that has always allowed her to push herself and taught her to never give up. While discussing successful students, El Toro has also arranged for students in our National Honor Society and California Scholarship Federation to provide peer tutoring in our Learning Center. These tutors are very high-achieving students and will provide aid to all grade levels in all subjects. In addition to sports and academics, El Toro's art program have also been a very big hit lately. Recently, El Toro's drama department held a showing based on the movie Coraline. The show was a huge success as we raised over $3,500 and sold out opening night. Callie Gentry, the star of the show, had this to say: "I was so happy to work with such fantastically talented people. It was an overall great and super exciting experience. El Toro has had and will have many more amazing accomplishments. Thank you for this opportunity, and I can't wait to share more with you next month. And as always, go Chargers!"
And congratulations.
Thank you.
We're proud of you. So guys, we'll take a motion for, item number 2. And we have another 7 minutes before we have to move to a destined time. So, take
Move
a motion.
approval.
Second, I'll second that. This is for presentations, item
Yes.
number 2.
Mayor Voight,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Serbo. Councilmember Teddemer. And Councilmember Motazedi.
Okay, well, okay, so, this brings us to the presentation recognizing American service members that lost their lives in Afghanistan. Madam City Manager, please introduce the item.
Thank you, Mayor. During the October 5th council meeting, Councilmember Serbo received consensus to forward a proclamation recognizing the 13 service members that lost their lives on August 26, 2021 in Afghanistan. So in honor of that proclamation, I will turn the presentation over to Councilmember Serbo.
Thank you, City Manager Rose. Yeah, this came about, some of you know, myself as a former Marine and Mayor Pro Tem Pequeño both have Marine Corps backgrounds. And so as a community that wants to support and recognize and honor the events that happened in Afghanistan, the city staff has done a wonderful job of putting together a proclamation listing the individuals, 13 of them, that soldiers and men and women who lost their lives defending our country. Additionally, we've also had a very generous donor who's going to put together banners that, just like the ones we have lining our streets, will have the names of these 13 folks that lost their lives. And we have this proclamation that, if I have time, Mayor, if I could just read really quickly to...
I think that they would all like to hear it. Thank you, sir.
Okay. City of Lake Forest proclamation honoring the U.S. military service members that perished in the August 26, 2021 bombing in Kabul, Afghanistan. Whereas 13 United States service members and at least 169 Afghans lost their lives in a bombing attack at the Hamid Karzai International Airport in Kabul, Afghanistan on August 26, 2021. And whereas Marine Corps Staff Sergeant Darren Hoover lost his life while serving his country. And whereas Marine Corps Corporal Hunter Lopez lost his life while serving his country. And whereas Marine Corps Corporal Dagan Page lost his life while serving his country. And whereas Marine Corps Corporal Humberto Sanchez lost his life while serving his country. And whereas Marine Corps Lance Corporal Jared Schmitz lost his life while serving this great country. And whereas Marine Corps Lance Corporal David Espinosa lost his life serving his country. And whereas Marine Corps Lance Corporal Dylan Merola lost his life while serving his country. And whereas Marine Force Corpsman Maxton Sobiak lost his life while serving his country. And whereas Marine Corps Sergeant Johanny Rosario Picardo lost her life while serving her country. And whereas Marine Corps Sergeant Nicole G. lost her life while serving her country. And finally, whereas Army Staff Sergeant Ryan C. Naus lost his life while serving our country. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Lake Forest, California, hereby recognizes valuable lives of 13 members of the U.S. military that served in Afghanistan on that tragic day, saving the lives of others and displaying tremendous bravery. We hold the families of these victims in our hearts, our thoughts today, and recognize these great men and women who paid the ultimate sacrifice in the name of freedom in America. This is signed by our mayor and our 4 council members, and we submit this proclamation as a way to honor these lives tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. As we near November 11th, Veterans Day, let us remember that our freedoms aren't free, that it comes with a cost, and that we are the land of the free because we're the home of the brave. So let us remember that. We have Veterans Park on Ridge Route. Please stop by and pay your respects. But on November 11th at El Toro Memorial Park, we'll have a Veterans Day ceremony at the park. So please watch for that, stop by and show your respect to the veterans. And they're all heroes in my eyes because they're willing to put on the service uniform of the United States military, and if called upon, willing to sacrifice their all. So thank you, Councilman. That was awesome. So that brings us to 6:45. Do we have a time certain? We're not there yet? Ladies and gentlemen, we have a time certain for a presentation that is for redistricting, and so that's time certain, so it has to be exactly on 6:45. That's what we're watching for. And so, are we there yet?
According to Cupertino Standard Time, we have 1 minute until 6:45, and this is a state requirement that we hold the hearing exactly at 6:45. So if we could just wait about 45 seconds, we'll be compliant.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, bear with us. But I think that, Lake Forest has a long history of military because the former Marine Corps Air Station El Toro was to our northern border, and the jets of El Toro Marine Corps Air Station flew over our city on a nightly basis most of the time before 2000. So we have a rich military history here in Lake Forest, and I think that that's why we respect those that serve, and I think that all Americans should, on this Veterans Day, give a thanks out to the freedoms we have to our veterans.
By a quick show of hands, do we have anybody in the audience that has served in the military previously? If you'd raise your hand, please. Excellent.
Thank you, veterans.
Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. We're ready. Okay, so I'd like to open up the public meeting, redistricting, and Madam City Manager, please introduce the item.
Thank you, Mayor. This is our first public hearing for our 2022 redistricting process, and I'd like to turn the item over to our city clerk, Lisa Berglund.
Hi, yes, Mayor and City Council members. So tonight you'll be receiving a summarized presentation by our demographer. His name is Andrew Westfall. He's with Bear Demographics and Research. And he'll be walking you through a PowerPoint presentation to go over the redistricting law, the criteria, and the process moving forward. Without further ado, Mr. Westfall.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk, and good evening, Mayor and Council members. It's great to be here this evening. My name is Andrew Westall, and I'm with Bear Demographics and Research, and we're consultants for the city's redistricting process between now and April of next year. Just as a personal aside, I have cousins that have lived in this city or in an unincorporated area for a very long time. I used to spend a lot of time as a kid spending summers and holidays in what we called El Toro back then, back in the 70s and 80s. And they live off of Creekside El Toro Road, which, from what I recall, was the last housing development for a very long time going north of El Toro Road. So it's amazing to see the growth in the city, and I think you guys are doing a fantastic job. So
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And welcome, and we appreciate your help. Thank you.
Well, we're happy to serve.
So we wish you Godspeed.
Thank you, sir. So tonight what we're going to do is a few things. We're going to spend a little time talking about redistricting law and criteria, talk about the process that the city will go through between now and March of next year, walk you through the website a little bit, as well as talk a little bit about the census numbers that came out and what they reflect in terms of the council districts. So in terms of redistricting law, there are a variety of laws which cover this area for the city of Lake Forest. You have a certain provision in the Lake Forest Municipal Code. You have the U.S. Constitution, which has protections in this space, the Federal Voting Rights Act, the California Elections Code, the California Constitution, and of course, as you can imagine, redistricting can be very litigious, and so there's a lot of case law with respect to this subject as well. So first off, with respect to the Lake Forest Municipal Code, in Chapter 2.05.030, is a section in by-district elections. And in that section of the municipal code under section B really lays out the part of the municipal code that will change at the end of this process. And so that's the only provision in the code that deals with redistricting and identifies the new map that would be used for this process going forward after April. The main reason why we do redistricting every 10 years is because when the census comes out, what we want to be able to do is for representation to equalize population. And so the most important principle in terms of redistricting is what we call the equal population principle. The idea that each council district should have roughly the same number of people in it at the end of this process. And there are some ways, there's some flexibility here, which we'll get into in a second, but overall city council districts must substantially be equal in population. That doesn't mean that they have to be exactly equal. In fact, the only districts that have to be exactly equal in population by one person are congressional districts. So when you're dealing with state legislative districts or you're dealing with smaller jurisdictions like cities, school districts, and that sort of thing, you do have, once again, some flexibility. But we want to be able to make a good faith effort to draw districts with equal population. We want to make sure that we build that on some rationale. And in general, the idea is that you can deviate from that ideal population. And I'll show you an example here in just a second. But you can deviate up to 10% from that total population. And it doesn't mean that every district can be plus 10 or negative 10. And as I'll show you an example here in a second, we'll see how that means. Excuse me. So once again, deviations from equal population should be justified. We don't want to seek to disadvantage any particular group in the city. We also want to be able to show a good faith effort through our public record. So when you're talking about deviation, really what you're talking about is a mathematical formula. And so the way that formula works is you start with the city's total population and you divide that by 5, right? And that gives you the ideal population for each council district. From that, you want to determine what the percent deviation is. You know, how much of a percentage is it different than that ideal population, either plus or minus. And then what you do is the district that has the least amount of population and that deviation, and the district that has the most population and that deviation, you want to add those two numbers together, and those two numbers should be less than 10%. So as you can see on this next slide, it shows you an example of a city similar to Lake Forest, a little bit larger. But once again, for the purposes of a math problem, try to make it easy for everybody. And so if you have an example of a city with a population of 100,000 people, and you have 5 council districts, that means the ideal population of each district would be 20,000 people. As you can see in this example, in District 1, which has the lowest deviation, it's off by 1,000 people, and so that's a negative 5% deviation. And then once again, in this example, District 2 has a population 500 over the ideal, which is a positive 2.5% deviation. And so in this example shown before you, once again, you take the highest negative and the highest positive and add those together, and in this example, it would be 7.5%, which once again is below the legal threshold of 10%. So, as I described before, equalizing population, that's the main reason why we do redistricting. But there's a lot of other criteria that have to be examined as we go through this process. And there's what's called, as you can see before you, the traditional redistricting criteria, which really includes 4 things: contiguity, compactness, natural boundaries and streets, and neighborhoods and communities of interest. So contiguity is the idea that all parts of a district should connect. And so you should be able to, as we get done with this process, you should be able to travel from any place in a particular district to another place in the district without having to leave the district. So to give you an example of what non-contiguity would be, if you take someplace like the El Toro Mobile Estates, and you put that, you create a district there, but then you add it to the same district that's up in Foothill Ranch, well, neither of those places connect to each other, right? And so you basically have 2 polygons at different parts of the city, and that would be non-contiguous, and that's illegal under the law, right? So once again, the idea is that the districts should be all together, and you should be able to travel within the district, once again, without leaving the district. The next criteria is the idea of compactness, and this is much more subjective depending on the geography of the city, depending on the neighborhoods of the city and how they're built out. But the idea is that districts should be relatively compact as well. And as we go through this process, you always want to be aware of appearance, shape, and what the boundary lines are. I will say the process that the city went through a few years ago did create compact and contiguous districts, and so certainly the process that was done observed these principles and this criteria. And then the next one here is these existing boundaries, right? Observing geographic boundaries, topographical boundaries, streets and freeways like the 241 highway, things like Lake Forest Drive or El Toro Road, Trabuco, you know, all of those major types of streets to the extent that that's feasible, once again, trying to equalize population. And then probably the most important criteria of the traditional criteria after those other things are what we call communities of interest, and really trying to identify communities of interest within the city of Lake Forest. And so really the public input process that we'll go through over the next several months will be trying to gauge from the residents of the city and from the public how they define their communities of interest, how they define their neighborhoods, where they go shopping, where their kids go to school, where they worship. All of those things can play into how people define their particular portion of the city of Lake Forest. And so as we go through this, we want to be able to preserve those communities that share those common interests. And so it's not just neighborhoods, it could be things like land use patterns, right? Whether you have residential or industrial or commercial. It could be cultural and language characteristics. Other things that could be used are income levels, educational backgrounds, employment and economic patterns. And you can even use things like crime and crime statistics in schools and school boundaries, school attendance zones, and other common issues. And so we try to not only work with the city and gather all that information in GIS layers that we have, but once again, as we go through these public workshops that we'll talking about in a minute, really trying to get that from the public and have them define for us how they view the city of Lake Forest. And so once again, we want to obtain this public testimony, consider the census data, as well as all of these other factors as we're drawing the new council districts. So after equalizing population and after the traditional redistricting criteria, you really have one area of law that you still have to pay attention to. And there's really two pieces to this, and it revolves around the use of race or ethnicity in the redistricting process. And so there are really two guiding principles that you have to navigate and stay between in order to be able to maintain a legal plan. The first one that we'll talk about here is what's called the Equal Protection Clause. And so this comes from the U.S. Constitution's 14th Amendment. And what case law has said over the course of time is that what the 14th Amendment provides is equal protection for everybody. And so it has, in general, prohibited the use of race as the predominant factor in redistricting, except in narrow circumstances. And so, in general, you cannot use race as a predominant factor in drawing new districts, and you shouldn't racially gerrymander districts. It's also important to understand that the Equal Protection Clause doesn't prohibit the consideration of race, but what you can't do, once again, is use race as that predominant factor and use that more importantly than that traditional redistricting criteria that we just talked about: compactness, contiguity, boundaries, right, natural boundaries, and communities of interest. And so you can consider it along with all of those factors, but once again, race shouldn't be the predominant factor. In terms of the process and the public record that we go through, what a court would look at in terms of evidence as race as a predominant factor would be direct testimony, right? And so it's not really about what the public says, right? We can't control what the public tells us, but we can control what we say in this process. And so direct evidence from the council, from your staff, on the website are all things that we have to pay attention to. And then also circumstantial evidence. The reports that we put out, the shapes and changes that are actually made, and what the final public record looks like. If it is determined by a court that race was used as the predominant factor in redistricting, then they apply what's called strict scrutiny, right? And what that means is that the courts will apply the highest burden to being able to prove that your plan is legal. And so you have to have a compelling interest of why you used race as the predominant factor. Your plan has to be narrowly tailored to that, and there's a very high burden to show that it's legal. Now, as I said, that's one set of laws, right, that we have to navigate through. But there's another set of law that we have to navigate through, and that's the Federal Voting Rights Act. And what the Federal Voting Rights Act provides is a variety of things. The first one is that it prohibits any voting practice or procedure that results in the denial or abridgment of the right to vote based on race, color, or language minority status. And it applies to redistricting plans when you're diluting minority voters in a particular jurisdiction and not giving them the ability to elect a candidate of their choice. And so, in general, we can't unlawfully minimize or cancel minority voting strength in a jurisdiction. And what's important is not the intent of the city in putting together the redistricting plan, but what the effect of the plan is, what the actual outcomes are. So to give you an idea, there's really two examples of what the court considers vote dilution. The first one is called fracturing. And so in this particular example, you have a jurisdiction that has 4 districts, and the orange square there is your minority voting population. And so when you fracture a minority voting base, what in essence you're doing is you're putting a little bit in each district so that even though there's a large enough population that they could elect a candidate of their choice, you're splitting it into too many districts, and so that's what they call fracturing, right? And that's what the courts have said are illegal. You also can't pack minority voters into one district and not allow them to elect candidates of their choice in multiple districts. So as you can see in the example on the bottom there, with the same four districts, same minority population, you can imagine that that minority population might be able to elect candidates of their choice in 2 of those districts. And so by packing them all into one district, that's what, once again, creates the legal issues. For the courts to find that there's a Federal Voting Rights Act issue with a plan, or as we go through this and go through this analysis, if we feel that there are Voting Rights Act issues, and we'll certainly discuss that with your city attorney if we come to that, there are really 3 preconditions for considering a violation of the Voting Rights Act. Right? The first one is that a minority group has to be significantly large enough and geographically compact enough to constitute a majority in a district. The minority group must also be politically cohesive, which means that they vote as a bloc, right? And so you have a variety of places in California where you have large Asian Pacific Islander populations, but the Asian Pacific Islander population has a lot of ethnic subgroups, Vietnamese, Chinese, Japanese, on and on and on. And so while you may have a concentration of API voters in a particular area, they don't necessarily vote the same way most of the time. And so once again, the idea is that not only do you have to have it sufficiently large enough, but they have to be politically cohesive and vote as a bloc. And then the last part of this criteria, or this test, I should call it, is that the majority usually outvotes the minority in that particular district or in that jurisdiction. So as I said, that's the other area of law that we have to pay attention to when it comes to race and ethnicity. My best advice to the mayor and council is that not to talk about race at all until we have to. Because certainly there are a lot of other things that we'll talk about in this process in terms of building districts and using that traditional redistricting criteria. And then once again, in conversations with city staff and your city attorney, if we feel that there's an issue there, we'll be sure to raise that with them. So overall, in terms of the summary of what we just talked about, right, the key principles that you want to keep in mind are, 1, population equality, right, keeping the population as equal as possible, once again with some flexibility to keep neighborhoods together. You want to focus on that traditional redistricting criteria, and you also, once again, don't want to use race as a predominant factor. Also comply with the Voting Rights Act, and then lastly, just establish and follow a good process. The better the process is and the better the public record is, the better the public will feel about the end result when we get done with this process in March. This next slide is something you're probably familiar with. These are the 5 current council districts in the city of Lake Forest. And we just wanted to show you this briefly before we get into the statistics. But as you can see, you have District 1 all the way up in the northeast, and with District 5 in the southwest portion of the city. So now we get to the more fun part, right? What you see here is just the top lines of the demographic profile for the city of Lake Forest. And there's a 10-page report that I would imagine has been distributed to you, but is also available on the city's redistricting website that gives a lot of more information than ethnicity. The census data really only deals with total population and ethnic groups for population and voting age population. But we like to provide a variety of other data in that demographic profile so that the council can look at all of these other issues and different communities of interest that we talked about. And so in that 10-page profile, you have educational attainment data, you have housing tenancy data, you have income data, just a variety of other data points for the city. And that data mostly comes from what's called the American Community Survey. It's a survey that's done by the U.S. Census Bureau. It's a rolling survey over a 5-year period. And so the data that's used in the report that's available to you is from the 2015 to 2019 American Community Survey. But once again, this is from the U.S. Census data. One of the things in California is that we have what's called census-adjusted data. And what that means is 10 years ago, the state legislature passed a law which said that when it comes to the state prison population, that state prison population should be reallocated back to their place of origin prior to incarceration during the redistricting process. So that, in essence, anyone that's in state prison in the city, that's from the city of Lake Forest, is included in these numbers as we do this redistricting process. And so this affects every jurisdiction throughout the state of California. The State Redistricting Commission uses this same data, as well as water districts. The county, Orange County, will use this same data, and this data was made available at the end of September. As we talked about before, you can see on that, once again, those top lines, and in terms of those deviations, the total population for the city of Lake Forest is 85,965. And as you can see from the deviations in the district sizes, we have some work to do here. From the data that's before you in District 2, you can see District 2 is 5,015 people over the ideal population. And so it has a deviation of 29.2%. District 5 is underpopulated by 2,211 people, and so it has a deviation of negative 12.9%. So you may recall earlier, we're trying to get under 10% total. Right now, we're at a deviation of 42.1%. And so there certainly will be some change that's needed to the districts. Certainly if the council chooses to, District 3 wouldn't have to change very much, but the other 4 will have some change. And we're not talking huge numbers here, right, or huge amounts of geography. As you can see, you're only talking a few thousand people here and there, but there will have to be adjustments. So with that, I would like to just go over the city's website a little bit in terms of redistricting. This is something that's required by the California Fair Maps Act. And so on the redistricting website for the city of Lake Forest, we have the demographic profile that we just talked about. We have a fact sheet in terms of the redistricting process, as well as a public comment form. And you have a listing of all the hearings and dates that will take place between now and March for this process. The next meeting that we have is a public workshop that'll take place on December 15th at 4:30 in the afternoon at Foothill Ranch Library, and we'll go into the other dates in a minute. But this is the landing page for the public and for anyone that wants to know about the city's redistricting process. On this website, we'll have all the summaries of public input, we'll have the draft maps and the final map as we go through this process. As part of this process, we've also provided an online mapping tool to the city of Lake Forest, which allows the public and the council, or anybody really, to be able to draw their own maps, right? So you don't have to necessarily rely on our expertise. Anyone can draw a map, and certainly then we'll evaluate it and make sure that it fits all of that legal criteria that we looked at earlier. But this is the landing page for the online mapping tool. You have a choice between choosing the current districts and equalizing population based on that, or starting from a blank plan and creating your own districts. And as we go through the public workshops, we'll be sure to teach the public how to use this online mapping tool and make sure that they're versed in it, so if they choose to draw their own maps, they can do so. Once you select one of those buttons, and the button for here that was selected was the current districts, it'll take you to this particular page where you have a variety of tools up in the top there that you can use to change census blocks, change census block groups, but once again, be able to draw your own districts. And as you can see on the left-hand side there is the population for each district. And so as you can see with District 3, it'll tell you that the population's good, right? You got a nice green check, but the other ones need some work. And then lastly, before I open it up to questions among the members, just did want to go over the timeline very briefly as well. So the first public hearing, once again, is this evening, and what we just went over. We'll have a public workshop on Wednesday, December 15th, and once again, that's at the Foothill Ranch Library. We'll be back here before you on January 4th at your council meeting, presenting a draft map, and that draft map has to be published on the city's website by December 28th. Once again, under the California Fair Maps Act, it's required that the draft maps or any maps are published on the city's website 7 days before the council takes them up for any particular action. And so it'll be published, once again, by December 28th, and we'll be back here with a presentation on that map. We'll do another public workshop on the draft map on Wednesday, January 26th. And then once again, we'll be back here before the council asking you to adopt the final map on February 15th. And once again, that has to be published on the city's website by February 8th. And then we'd have a second reading on that map by March 15th. One of the things I didn't lay out here, but just so the mayor and council know, this process has to be wrapped up by April 17th of next year. That's the deadline in state law, and if we're not done by that time, then any member of the city, any resident of the city can petition for a court to take over, and then the Superior Court would actually draw the new council map for the city. So certainly we want to be done by that time, and as you can see with this timeline, we have about an extra month built in case we have any hiccups or any issues that come up that we can't resolve quickly. So with that, Mayor, the presentation is completed. I'm happy to answer any questions or take any comments from the council.
All right, at this time, I would like to check with Madam, do we have any requests for speakers?
Mr. Mayor, I have one in-person speaker, and then I'll have to check the virtual room.
Okay, and then we have a virtual, could you, we have some public speakers, then we'll have you come back up and answer our questions, and thank you so much.
Okay.
And I guess you're gonna get to know Old El Toro as Lake Forest now. Okay, that public speaker, please.
Okay. If there are any speakers joining us this evening virtually that would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand virtually on the Life-Size app. The City Council will listen to in-person public comments first, and then we'll hear from the speakers joining us tonight virtually. Our first and only speaker in person on this item is Louise Robertson.
Good evening.
Hi, yes, thank you, Mayor Voights, Mayor Pro Tem Pequeño, Council Members Serbo, Tedimer, and Motazetti. I know it's very early in the process, but I want to put a little bee in your ear, a little in your ear. If you look at that map, there's a very clear chink into District 1, with that area being in District 2. I have done the numbers, and it does basically just push you to the other side at about the same number of votes or number of people. But when you consider natural boundaries, common interest issues, school attendance, and all those other guidelines, that area is consistent with the District 1 area and should never have been part of District 2. And I feel like it was a disservice to those voters. And I think it diluted the Foothill Ranch vote in the election. I'm not saying specifically last election, I'm just saying in general, I think you did a disservice to those members of the community, and it needs to be considered to be part of District 1. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and you're gonna have time to put together a map and present it to us, and so thank you for coming tonight.
Yeah, I just want you guys to be thinking about it and all the other people before they
Okay.
start their work.
Thank you. Did anybody respond virtually?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so that brings us back. I will now close the public hearing. and bring it back to council members. Do we have any questions as we prepare? So is this, do we need a motion or anything on this, receive and file? Okay, well, I look forward to working with you, and I appreciate your time with us tonight. And
Mr. Mayor?
yes.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry. We would like you to approve the timeline that was presented to you, which shows
Okay.
the dates of the public hearings.
So moved. So moved. I'll second that. Yeah, okay. Robert will second that. Mayor Pro Tem will second that.
Mayor Voights?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Pequeño?
Aye.
Councilmember Serbo?
Aye.
Councilmember Teddemer?
Aye.
And Councilmember Motazedi? Councilmember Motazedi?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you, Andrew, and we look forward to working with you. All righty. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it.
Okay. At this time, we've already done presentation. Public comments. If you'd like to make a comment, please fill out the blue speaker part, turn it into the city clerk, and your name will be called after your city blue card was turned in. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per speaker. When you're called to speak, a timer will display on the screen. When the timer begins to flash on the screen, you will have 30 seconds to finish your comments. Madam Clerk, have we received any requests to speak?
Excuse me. Yes, we received a number of requests to speak under public comment.
And I think that to clarify this, I think to make it easier because of the transition we're making to audio and speaking, I'd like to have all the public comments, if there's any, for any of the others, rather than have them come back and wait back in. So public hearing will be item number 10. So other than item 10, I'd like to have everybody speak at public comments.
Okay, we do have quite a few speakers queued up, so we'll get started with public comment first.
Okay, who's here first?
Let me, hold on a second. So, to those that want to speak under any item except for item 10 that are on life size, please raise your virtual hand in the app. We will be taking your public comments shortly. We will take all in-person comments first, and then I will call on each speaker wishing to speak through the life size app. So beginning with our in-person comments, our first speaker is Walter Nebrega.
Walter.
City council members, city staff, my name is Walter Nebrega. I will be commenting on public choice aggregation tonight. Last week, city staff commented that they will continue to update the city council on community choice aggregation. I now feel the need to also update the council. The council is aware of the failure of Western Community Energy, but is the council aware of the sizable losses of Desert Community Energy in its first year? They had to borrow more than $2 million to pay their bills and will have to repay the loan by the end of this year. Please check out the literature in the packet I submitted. It's an eye-opener for you. Has city staff given the council that information? And then there is the Baldwin Park Be Proud CCA, who has voted on 10/6/2021 to decertify as a CCA energy provider. See the literature submitted, especially read item number 8. As I read it, the Baldwin Park General Fund had to transfer $1.875 million to cover the CCA shortfall. So much for the statement that there is no risk to a city's general fund. Has city staff given the council that information? Has the city council and city staff been following the Orange County Power Authority soap opera? Even the environmentalists who pushed Irvine into forming a CCA are complaining about the secretive OCPA and the bad actors on the board from the Irvine watchdog, if anybody watches it. Thankful this council saved our city from that abomination. I will finish now with how the Marin Energy customers are still paying a whopping
$11.18 per month, $134.16 per year, more than PG&E. What else can I say? CCAs are risky ventures and will eventually cost residents more money than a local utility. I am also in the process of rechecking the other CCAs versus SCE. I will comment at a further date. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Julie Stratton, followed by Fred Pedroza.
Good evening, and welcome,
evening.
Julie.
Thank you. I'm just here to discuss, I'm a concerned citizen, and I'd like to point out to the council, thank you for giving me this time, first of all. Your code enforcement is acting in a very police state manner and attacking a local business, Pedroza Ready Mix. They're in your industrial section. And I just want to bring your attention to the ongoing harassment that we're seeing by code enforcement on a continuing basis. It's even gone to the extent where they're gaslighting the employees. When a code enforcement officer is asked, "What are you doing?" they respond to the owner in a manner and accusing them of attacking them and to step back and escalate the situation. Code enforcement is continually harassing the employees, and when you're questioning them, they become extremely defensive. At one point, even the female owner referring to her as too emotional. Don't get me started on men calling women too emotional. When we're asserting ourselves, we're not being emotional. So to hear that come from your code enforcement is appalling to me. This has been going on ever since the business opened. We're aware of a prior lawsuit with the prior business, and we're afraid the attitude of the city is spilling over. This is unfair and unjust. This is a family-run business that employs 20 people in the community that have their own families. And code enforcement is actively trying to shut this business down for no good reason. I was reviewing their latest report that shows dirt in the driveway. This is a cement plant. This driveway is no dirtier than the one at my home. You go by other cement plants in the area, and their driveways are way dirtier. It is a targeted attack. It is obvious. There are other businesses in the area who we've talked to that are reporting the same issues. So I thank you for your time. This is just the beginning of the fight because we're going to fight back. And I thank you for listening, and I hope that you will speak to your code enforcement officers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ma'am, Mayor, may I ask her for her contact information so that one of us can follow up, please?
Yeah, we have that on the blue card, so thank you. Next speaker.
Next speaker is Fred Pedroza, followed by Tracy Pedroza.
How you doing, Mayor and City Council? I'm
Good
Fred
evening,
Pedroza.
Mr. Pedroza.
I am the owner of Pedroza Ready Mix. I've bought, excuse me, I've purchased the Ready Mix plant on Olive Avenue. We've been in business about 3 years, and I'm just here to also say that about the city. They've continually fined us thousands of dollars in fines because of the street. When we first started, I had trucks unloading out in the street, which I found out that we can't do. So ever since then, everything comes inside and unloads. I know the rules and everything, and I bought a sweeper. I've hired 2 guys just to sweep the street every day, all day. And just a couple of weeks ago, I got another citation in the mail that wasn't good enough. So I'm just kind of like dumbfounded and don't know what to do. You know, I've asked Devin and Peter, you know, the guys who write us the citations, you know, what can I do? They said, follow the BMPs. I said, I am following the BMPs, but it's not good enough. These guys are harassing us. They came by yesterday. One of my employees saw them come by today, and they're filming everything. And, you know, it's like, film all you want. You know, we have nothing to hide. We're wide open, you know, but, you know, just for them continually going back and forth every day, all day, waiting for a little puddle of water to end up on the street. You know, they see that, boy, they're just right there ready to test the water. You know, it's just getting ridiculous. And I just want to bring it up to your attention that I don't think it's fair, and we're trying to do everything we can to solve the problem, but at this point, I don't see you guys really helping us as a small business to show us what we need to do. So in order of that, you know, my next step is, do I need to hire a lawyer? Do we need to go to court? You know, I don't want to do any of that. I just want to comply with your rules, and then let me know what it is, and then we'll do them. And you guys could stop citing us. And I just thank you for your time, and we'll see what happens in the future.
So, a real quick question. Are you Mr. Pedroza?
Yes.
Have they told you to hire a consultant, an environmental consultant or anything?
They have not told us to hire anybody, but since then, we have hired a consultant, Crystal Waters. We have Frog Environmental, who does all our testing. We've hired them, but it's still, to this point, it doesn't seem to help.
And so I've actually driven by because I've heard about this. So I've actually driven by and saw your streets are clean. If you've hired a consultant, I want to say thank you for doing that. We are supposed to be a pro-business city, so stay with us, and I'll ask staff about that. So thank you for your coming tonight and letting us know.
Thank you.
We wish you well.
Thank you for your time.
With clean streets. Thank you.
Next speaker is Tracy Pedroza, followed by Colton Wood.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Tracy Pedroza. I am the owner of Pedroza Ready Mix with my husband, Fred Pedroza. We employ several employees. It's a family-owned business. Again, I'm just going to state we've been targeted. I feel like we're being harassed and abused by the city. Several occasions, the city and the code enforcement officers are driving by constantly. It just seems no matter when we turn around, there's somebody there. It feels like they're targeting us. They're abusing us because they're not doing this to the other places nearby. If you drive around the other plants, you can see that our streets are even cleaner than theirs. We're taking pictures, we're logging, we're following up. I'm keeping track of every time somebody comes to our plant. I have been harassed by your code enforcement officers. You know, we have received several fines. I've gone to the city to pay those fines, and upon arriving at the city, if you look at the back of the citation, it says to bring your fine to the city or mail it in. I walked it in. I went to the desks. Nobody wanted to take my check.
Wow.
I asked to talk to the person who created the citation, and they were not available. I asked to talk to somebody who could help me to decipher the citation and explain to me what it was for. Nobody could help me. I stood there long enough, they ended up finding somebody who was an accounting technician who came down, who then also could not help me. He also did not want to take my check, but I pleaded with him to take it so that you would know that we are trying to comply. I have asked for help, and all I get is that the city writes codes to enforce the laws so that we can have a clean city. We've paid thousands of dollars for consultants to help us, and we're ready to fight. I've contacted Dwight Robinson. I think you all know him. And we've been referred to an environmental attorney, so you will be receiving a letter on our behalf. We're tired of the abuse. It's got to stop.
Out of curiosity, did they cash the check did they ever
Yes.
take the check?
Yes, they did.
They cashed it?
Yes.
So you paid at least the fine?
I have several fines. I've paid them, and then I've gotten more fines that refer to the other citations that I've already paid for. So quite frankly, I'm confused about which fines need to be paid.
Okay, well, your time is up, and I want to say thank you for coming tonight. We do claim to be a pro-business city, and so I don't feel we want to shut you down, so let us talk to staff and follow up on this, and so thank you for coming in, letting us know your griefs, and so
Thank you, I appreciate
we
it.
wish you well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Colton Wood, followed by Louise Robertson.
Good evening. My name is Colton Wood. I'm a local civil rights activist for the Americans with Disabilities Act. After learning that businesses and police discriminate against the disabled, I began recording their violations. I got famous, and with that came stalkers, right-wing Nazis. Then I have to go to the same police that I document breaking the law to report the crimes against me by the stalkers. They never investigate. The stalkers recruit local people to help me with their attacks. A particular local, Dason Fitzpatrick, has been bullying me severely. I reported him numerous times for threats and pulling a knife on me. I have a video here where he is armed with a knife, causing me to fear for my life. And I'll play it for you.
You're a real white nigger. I got black in me, but you're a real white nigger. You know what nigger means? You know what N-I-G-G-E-R means, you fucking nigger? I bet you do. I got the dick for it. Yeah, I bet you do, faggot. You're a faggot and a snitch. And you're gonna get beat to death when you go to jail. You're gonna go. Even though you're a Republican, faggot-ass little bitch that's got amnesty and sovereignty. Go for it, bitch! Nigga, you wish you could. Get out of here. Fuck yourself. I'm not afraid of you at all. You think I'm afraid of you one bit or the bad? Because I'm not. If you hit me, even if I go to ICU, nigga, I'm gonna come after you and kill you, you fat bitch. Stupid motherfucking loser. Get out of here. Go fuck your mom in her butt, Colton. Go fuck your mama. Goofy bitch. Get out of there. Go suck a dick, nigga. You sound like a fat bitch. You touch my shit, I'ma fuck you up. Stay the fuck away from my shit. Keep your fucking ass the fuck away from me. You get the fuck out of town. You get the fuck out of town, bitch. You don't belong here either. Get the fuck out of town. You goofy gay heroin addict, go back to Hollywood where you suck your first cock. Fucking bitch. Stupid, ugly mother. What are you gonna do? Do it.
The man lunges at me, and I am forced to defend myself. The police claim I attacked him from behind unprovoked. Now out, he continues to harass me along with others in the community. Police will not investigate the flagrant hate crimes. I need witnesses. I'm in danger, and I'm not even allowed to defend myself. The police are corrupt, biased in favor of my thin blue line, stop the steal, COVID is a hoax, anti-vax stalkers. I am one lonely, mentally ill, disabled, homeless man being gang-stalked by these trolls, the police, homophobes, people enjoying hurting others, and people I've caught violating the Americans with Disabilities Act and discriminating against me. I need to compel the police to investigate, and I need witnesses for my own safety. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Colton, for letting us know.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a couple
I-
questions,
I
please?
No, I've got the, Mr. Colton, did that happen in Lake Forest?
Yes, it did. Here on
It-
Dimension Drive, just
Ha-
right
Have
over
you
there.
ever been offered to, yeah, because we will help you get into a stable living environment if you'd like.
I've been in a program for some time. I'm waiting on housing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I
I'm more
encourage you,
concerned
I
with the
encourage you to
violent
stay
hate
plugged in with
crimes
us,
than my
because we want to
hardships.
help you, okay? Because that shouldn't happen in our city, so I'm so sorry.
You know, what I need is the police to do their job and investigate. I picked one example here. I have innumerable examples.
Okay,
My stalkers are right-wing Nazis. They do speeches in front of swastikas and Confederate flags. They're flagrant
Okay,
about.
Colton, we'll get in contact with you, because I'm going to come out and visit with you too. So thank you for coming tonight and letting us know. Councilwoman Motazzi, do you have one question?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Is that, okay, thank you, Colton, and stay well. Thank you, sir.
Next public comment is Louise Robertson, followed by Susan Hahn.
I just wanted to clarify, this is just public comments, or is it also item 12?
Okay.
Because I wasn't clear on what you were saying.
Well, we were taking the virtual ones because we were mishmashing everything because of the, now we're going virtual to where people could call in virtually.
Yeah, but the way you worded it, I was concerned that I would not be able to speak later on item
No,
12.
you'll be, if you want to stay for that, you'll be a few minutes, but we're going to still have public comments in-house for that.
Okay, great.
All right, thank you, Louise.
I'm speaking on item 11 and 12, and while I was here, I thought I would speak to you guys. Appreciate you letting me speak a couple times.
You want to restart the minutes, and we'll let you speak now.
Oh, I don't need much time. I just was already speaking on other items, and I wanted to have this time to, I have attended the town hall put on by Mayor Pro Tem Pequeño that you also attended. I watch every city council meeting. I don't always agree with the vote, but I do watch you, and I see that you are putting time and effort into every decision you make, and I'm grateful for that effort and time that you've put in. I am also amazed at the openness and willingness of the city putting on this leadership academy, and I'm so grateful for that opportunity. I know it's not over yet, but I'm here tonight, and I want to take this opportunity to thank you for that opportunity and the ability to learn more about this city. My only negative tonight is my children attended Trabuco Hills High School, and every time I am at these meetings, I have to hear how great El Toro High School, and I don't like that. So maybe we could work on a way to consider students that also attend Laguna Hills and Trabuco Hills High School. But it's not a major item, but I just thought I'd say it while I was here. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. That was a good comment. Thank you. Okay, next, please.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to clarify. We're taking all public comments for every item except the public hearing, is that correct?
Except public hearing 10, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so next public speaker is Susan Hahn, followed by Bob Holtzclaw.
Thank you.
City Council members, I'm here to support the Pedrosa's position. I'm the owner of the property on which their business is. And when I was deciding whether I would sell the property or rent it out, Fred Pedrosa approached me, and I was very impressed by him. I met his wife, his children who are involved in the business, his brother who's involved in the business, and just their spirit and their value system convinced me that they were trustworthy people, hardworking people who had a successful business, you know, in their past that they were still running. I have driven by the business a number of times, and it took a while to get it going, and I am very familiar with the prior business that was there, and the difference in the cleanliness, in the way the facility is run, in the way there's not cement trucks just parked everywhere in the street, often from the past, blocking traffic. I have seen none of that with the Pedrosas. I have had some contact with the enforcement staff, I think is what they referred to, a guy named Devin, I can't remember his last name. We spoke on the phone. He was very polite. He seemed like a nice man, but he did, in our conversation, mention that the city wanted to get rid of the cement company, and that he seemed to have very negative kind of feelings about it. I tried to talk with him about that, and I felt like I made some headway, and we had some understanding. I know that Fred and Tracy have talked to him at length. But anyway, I just hope we can resolve this, because, I mean, it's a great city, and you should have great people like this working in the city. And anything I can do to help, I will do.
Thank you. Thank you for coming tonight. We
Okay,
value
well,
all our businesses, and so.
I'm sure you do.
We as a city council, I'll figure out what's going on with it, but I'm thankful that he's hired a consultant that actually helped him.
I am
Thank you.
too. We
Okay.
had discussed that, and David
Thank-
had recommended that.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Okay. Our next two public speakers will be on item number 6, Mr. Holtzclaw, followed by Paul Whitemee.
Bob Holtzclaw, resident of Lake Forest. I'm speaking on item number 6. That's the street sweeping signage. And I think it all started with Andy O'Connor making a complaint about a car that's been parked there on Pittsburgh Lane or Drive. And there is a suitable amount of garbage around it. I saw the picture. And I don't hold anything against Mayor Voights for bringing that up to the city council. It's his district, and presenting it. What I'd like to discuss is we have the same situation in my neighborhood. We actually, from Jim Riker from the Traffic Commission, said to get a petition up. Well, we got 52% of all the neighbors there complaining about trash and also parked cars. We have the street sweeper. All it does is just go down the middle of the street. It's a waste of time. And we complained about it. We got 52%, and that's excluding the one abandoned house, and if we have renters too. So we would like our district representative, I think that's Mark Tenemer, if he could help us do the same thing, that we should have street sweeping signage too. I mean, in a neighborhood, Tran came out and looked at the property out there, and he said, well, there's not that much trash. But you didn't say anything about the street sweeper just going down the middle of the street, because there's parked cars all the way down. We even sent pictures of the street sweeper going down the middle of the street, and that's how it usually is. And it's ridiculous. So, we'd like some help over there to do the very same thing, because, we need some help also. It's, it's tit for tat. Like I said, Mr. Mayor, I agree, it's your district. Do you want to do something about it? Well, we tried that, and the city came out and said, well, there's not enough trash in the street. Well, it's a neighborhood. And the thing is neighbors pick up the trash in front of their house. Pittsburgh Drive is a straight street. It's not really with the houses on the front of it. So there's a big difference. So we get the trash, but we pick it up. And it's not right for us really to pick it up. It should be a street sweeper going down the middle of the road that picks it up. But thank you anyway. And, oh, by the way, I got 10 seconds. We also have a friend that's in Afghanistan. He's still there, a federal employee. And I just got an email that he's still there. His mother is still wondering where he is. But thank you anyway.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Paul Whitemee. Whitmee, thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. Mr. Mayor, City Council members, staff, thank you for letting me speak. I'm following up with Bob on our effort to try and get street sweeping in our Parkwood Estates 2 tract. We worked very hard and diligently to put out petitions to get 52% signage of the residents in the tract. And I imagine you know how difficult that is. So once we did that, and we struggled very hard to get the city to approve it, and they declined our request. The reasons we did this is we have a number of homes that have multiple tenants inside with multiple cars, and they park on the streets, and they don't really care if they're parked on the street during the street sweeping day. Now that the street sweeper only comes twice a month, and in some cases that's 3 weeks between the street sweeping, the streets do get a lot of debris in them. I have signs that I put up on my own trees saying, please, I have to be nice, I say, please don't park on the street on Wednesdays. And I put it on my trees, on my parkway, and on the front of my house. And it works. All it needs is to remind most people. But there are the people who don't care and will leave their cars out anyway. I drove Pittsford, and I agree that there's so many cars there, you do need signs there, but we need the signs in our neighborhood too. If we want to, the street sweeper laughs at me as he goes by down the center of the street. We look for your help. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll talk to staff about that, so thank you.
Okay, our next speakers will be on item number 12. First speaker is Barbara Taylor, followed by Shannon Quinn.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council and staff. I'm Barbara Taylor. I live in Portola Hills in the Bella Palermo community. I'm the president of the HOA. I know Doug is familiar with our comments about the lighting. Some years ago, there was a project to get input about the new park in the new development area, and the question of lighting came up, and the recommendation was to have what's called, I believe, standard lighting was the term. I was here at the old city council 2 years ago, I think. The last time I was here, we were talking about the same issue of lighting, and the majority of the people that stood up said they thought the lighting was fine, the standard lighting. We don't need high lighting, we don't need extra lighting. And I'd like to just reinforce that. We don't need tall lighting. We'd like to keep our views. You know, we have a beautiful view from the hill across the county, across Lake Forest, and we'd like to be able to see it in the evening. We don't want light pollution. We would like to keep enough lighting so that it's safe, that the standard lighting, but we don't need really tall, extra bright lighting. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank
We
you
don't
very
want to
much.
impose on your view neither, so thank you.
Okay, next speaker, Shannon Quinn, followed by Rodrigo Murillo.
Shannon?
Yes.
Hi, Shannon.
So I'm also here. I live in the Portola Hills community. I'm also here against adding any incremental or stadium lights in the Portola Park. I know 2 years ago, several of the council members were involved in the discussion that we had and the pushback from the majority of the community to not have the incremental or stadium lights, and were in agreement with us back then 2 years ago. So quite frankly, I'm a little frustrated, and I know many of the community members in our area are frustrated to be back here again to have the same discussion. I understand that the community has expanded. We've had additional development in the area, and that perhaps some folks didn't get an opportunity to talk to the lighting and the needs for that area. But I think the main reason that people are piping in about additional lighting is because they would like an opportunity to play when it's not play pickleball specifically, or with their dogs at the park while it's hot outside. If you look at the park, there's like very little to any shade. So I would recommend, as a better solution, both for the climate and everything, is to add trees or some sort of other solution where lights, as we mentioned 2 years ago, are pollution for those in the surrounding area and increase traffic for the park later at night. So if we can find a different solution so that our community members who are interested in playing pickleball later in the evening or with their dog, that they can come and they can be able to enjoy the amenities without having to put in these lights fixtures similar to the sports park, which is less than a mile away. My last point is that this park was never meant to be a sports park. It was never meant to be lit up like a huge stadium-style park. And so I think it was more in line with how Concourse was, and in both cases, that makes for a very nice park for the community to enjoy. So at the end of the day, I'm just asking for the council members to please consider not adding the additional lights and stadium and listen to the community both back in 2019 and today. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, next speaker is Rodrigo Murillo, followed by James Henslick.
Mr. Mayor, city staff, thank you for your time.
Mario?
Murillo, yes. Murillo in Spanish, but Murillo sometimes.
Murillo, okay.
I'm a homeowner at the Oaks in Portola Hills. My home faces or my backyard faces the park. And this is a neighborhood park. It's not a sports park. It's not what people are trying to make it out to be, right? And the light pollution, all that stuff, 1,000% valid, 100% in, 1,000% behind it. The additional concern that I'm worried about is that if you start putting in lights in here, into this park, and it becomes a athletic park, a soccer field, and so on. And so every night there'll be soccer practices, clubs will be buying for this field, additional traffic. You have 50 parking spaces there, right? And if they're gonna practice there, they're gonna play there. The weekends, my kids play soccer. I'm a certified soccer coach. Every Saturday, Sunday, from 8 o'clock, and now until, if there's lights, who knows when, game after game, game after game, teams overlap, because you'll be booking games after games, and you're gonna have 150 cars there at a given moment. And they're gonna spill over into the neighborhoods. Iron Ridge is gonna close their gates, because they're not gonna want those cars to go into their neighborhood. The Oaks is gonna close their gates, and so where are they gonna go? It's gonna be a complete mess. So I really, I'm also very frustrated that we have to do this again after 2 years, right? We've already decided this, and it just can't keep coming up year after year. It's done. It's done. That's all.
Thank you for your comments.
Okay, next speaker is James Henslick, followed by Michelle Henslick.
Mr. Mayor and council members, thank you for your service. So,
thank you, James.
I would like to speak in favor of the lights in the park for the pickleball courts, especially, and the dog park. I'm not in favor of lighting the entire field nor the tot lot, as I do feel that that could possibly create some issues. As residents of Lake Forest for over 30 years, specifically in Portola Hills, we've sort of suffered for decades being the second city to Mission Viejo for recreational facilities. For the last decade, we've been catching up. We're doing a pretty good job. We have a cool park now. We have, new facilities, but we still are not thought of as a nationally recognized city as far as recreational activities go. We're almost there. We're getting there. So, in the city, how many pickleball courts do we have? 3. For a city our size, 3. Pickleball is the fastest growing sport in America. Every day, if you drive past those pickleball courts, they are full. If you drive past the pickleball courts in Portola Springs, they are full. So, wintertime comes. Now, people that work have 1 hour in the morning that they can play, and they have 0 hours in the evening they can play. So, we take the fastest growing sport in America, we have 3 courts, and now we have 1 hour that anybody who works can play. That doesn't work. So I heard people talk about stadium lights. We're not talking about stadium lights, guys. They're no taller than these lights right here. We have 3 sets of tennis courts in Portola Hills. All 3 are lit up. Nobody complains about those. Drive by them. The pollution from the lights is minimal. It doesn't even extend down to the road right down below them.
That's correct.
So I think a lot of these arguments are strictly because people don't understand what we're asking for. Fastest growing sport in America, most fun sport as far as I'm concerned in America, and I think all of those people that are complaining need to get out and try it. So come out and join us. But the pickleball courts are not going to affect the quality of life of anybody living in the area. And the light pollution is really, really minimal. Please drive by the courts in Portola Springs, drive by the courts in the tennis courts already that exist, and park your car literally in front of the courts and get your phone out, and you can't even read your phone because there's not enough light coming from those courts to illuminate your phone or your article that you're trying to read. So please do the homework so that we can all enjoy our community and play pickleball in the evenings. So thank you for your time, and I appreciate everything you guys do.
Thank you, James. And I am a wheelchair-bound guy that's been out and played pickleball, so it is a fun sport, so thank you for coming tonight.
Awesome. We'd love to get out there and play with you.
All righty, well, I'll get your number from the blue card. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Next speaker is Michelle Hensick, followed by Sandy Boyd.
Hi, Mayor and City Council members. As my husband had mentioned, we were both over 30 years as a Lake Forest resident, specifically in Portola Hills, and was very excited that we actually had some areas to take our dogs where the dogs were enclosed. I'm in favor of lighting both at the dog park and at the pickleball courts. From what I understand, everything's already been wired that way when the facilities were put in. They just didn't actually put in the physical lights, and that the proposal is very low lighting, not stadium level lighting. Nothing extremely tall. I think it was like 20 feet tall,
20
and
feet.
the lights would be concentrated on the lots that needed to have light. That kind of lighting, from what I've observed in other locations, does not affect the surrounding areas in giving off a ton of light like a stadium light would, and also not the views. And we're requesting at least a few hours extension on the light after it gets dark. Specifically in the dog park, I've, in the last 3 weeks, visited there trying to go after work and arrive about the time that it starts to get dusk. And there are 25 to 30 people that are just getting there after work to take their dog out. That's usually between the hours of 5 and 6. And as soon as daylight saving times hit, then these people are not going to be able to utilize this facility after hours. And that would be for the entire winter, since the time doesn't go back. So it's the same lighting situation. They're not stadium lights, and that it's highly concentrated lighting that will not affect views.
Thank you for your comments.
listening.
And Mr. Mayor and Council, so we have one more in-person speaker, and I'd just like to make the announcement one more time. For anyone that's joining us on life-size, please raise your virtual hand if you would like to speak tonight. So far, I do have one person in the queue to speak virtually. So our next speaker is Louise Robertson, actually.
You said
Oh,
Sandy.
I'm sorry, Sandy Boyd and then Louise Robertson. I apologize. Information overload.
Thank you for all your service, and I'm going to disagree with Mr. Henslick that I think the Lake Forest Sports Parks is one of the best in the nation.
I'd agree with you.
Definitely better than Mission Viejo. And I'm for the pickleball lights, and I'm an electrical contractor, so I can attest to stadium lights are like 75 feet high with multiple lights to light up sports facilities like for soccer, and I don't think that's what we're talking about, or I'm not for that, but the pickleball courts, 20-foot high, lights are set now that they can adjust them, so they're just for the courts and nothing else, not a lot of light pollution or light bleed out anywhere else. So the pickleball courts, I play a couple times a week. I like to show up after work. It's usually full, you have to wait, and you just wait your turn and you get in. Everybody's polite and you get your turn to play, but it's full. And now when the time changes, that's gone. You have to drive to Portola Springs and fight for court time there. So.
All right. Well, thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Voights, council members, and staff. This was the reason why I came tonight, so I was afraid I was going to miss that. My name is Louise Robertson. I've lived in Lake Forest 24 years, and I reside in District 1. I am in favor of putting lights in the pickleball courts and the volleyball courts. I'm one of a 63-person Group Me group. We play pickleball at Portola Park daily from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. This group ranges in age between 30 years old and 75 years old, averaging about 10 to 20 people a day. And we just rotate around. We've already heard pickleball is popular and court space is limited. Many of the people in the group work during the day. That's why they come from 6 to 8. And sometimes we meet again at 4 or 5 in the afternoon. Adding lighting would open up the usage of the pickleball courts to those who can't come during the day, and would also spread out the users so that there's not such a demand during the limited daylight time before and after work. I think we can agree that well-used park facilities are positive for our community. I think that's what these pickleball courts are doing, bringing us as a community together. I've read the staff report, I've read the survey report, the survey results, and I think that they have a support for a yes vote for this. Two things also, it's $77,500 for the pickleball courts, not the higher number. I hope you got a revised staff report. The numbers are wrong. If you look at the no votes on the survey, it's a very general question, and every no vote would be against pickleball is many reasons that aren't necessarily a no. Some are all, I want lights at Cherry Park. I want lights at Veterans Park. I don't think that's a no for lights for the pickleball courts. That's just, they want their own park. I think that if there were pickleball courts in their park, they would want them there. So many of those no votes are really yes votes, depending on where the pickleball courts are. I also think that many of the no votes in Portola Hills are based on the term stadium lights, that they don't want stadium lights, and so those no votes are also skewed. And I think that if you're going to vote no tonight, you need to really analyze those no votes and make sure you're making the right decision for the community. I also think that these courts are close to Glen Ranch Road. There is noise pollution there. There is very minimal additional noise pollution from the courts. And the light pollution is also minimal because it's right next to the lights that are on the walkway on one side and the parking lot on the other. So those lights in the middle will have no effect. Add a timer, perhaps, but I think this is something that if you don't do, it's a sad thing for this park. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Mayor and City Council, it is now time to take public comment virtually.
Please.
The first and only speaker is Red Pedroza. Mr. Pedroza, when I tell you that you are unmuted, you will have 3 minutes to make your comments, and the timer will start once you begin speaking. You are now unmuted. You will need to unmute yourself on life size in order for us to hear you. Please begin making your comments now.
Okay, thank you so much. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank
Yes.
you.
Okay, thank you. Just want to say I'm also an employee at Pedroza Ready Mix. I am the son of Fred Pedroza. And I just wanted to say my my 2 cents. And just that, you know, I rely on this batch plant, concrete batch plant to stay open as part of, you know, providing for my family. And, you know, if this batch plant were to be shut down by the city for whatever reason they wanted, you know, it would definitely put a lot of strain on being able to provide for for my family, and you know, and so I just wanted to let you know that there is definitely employees here that rely on this business to stay open, and not just me. It's, you know, there's others as well, but I just wanted to let you guys know that, and you know, we're out there doing our best to keep that area clean as best as we can, and constantly just working on it, and as soon as anything comes awry, I'm out there sweeping, cleaning, vacuuming, whatever needs to be done. But anyways, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to be able to speak, and that's all I got.
Thank you for your comments tonight.
That concludes our comments, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, that brings us to consent calendar. All matters listed in the consent calendar are considered routine and will be acted by one vote. There'll be no separate discussion on these items unless members of the city council or staff specifically address an item to be removed from the council calendar, consent calendar for separate action. Have there been any requests?
I've received
Council?
none.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have a statement to make, please.
Yeah, oh, yes, you may.
There's a warrant in the register to all city management services. My wife is an employee of ACMS, and I have determined that I have a remote interest in this warrant, and I will abstain from voting on that warrant.
There's also a warrant, I have a warrant to register for the County of Orange. I am an employee of the County of Orange, but I do not work for the department that generated the warrants. Because the County of Orange is a public agency and because I do not work for the department in question, I have determined that I have a non-interest in these warrants and will be voted on the item. Councilwoman Matazity.
Yes, hi. There is a warrant on the register to the gas company. I'm an employee of the gas company and have determined that I have a remote interest in this warrant and will abstain from voting on the warrant.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
We'll move the consent calendar.
Second.
Oh, we'll let Councilwoman Matazzi have that one. Thank you.
Mayor Voights.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Pequeño.
Aye.
Councilmember Serbo.
Aye.
Councilmember Teddemer.
Aye.
Councilmember Motazedi.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, that brings us to a public
Mr.
hearing.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Before we start the public hearing, I wanted to let you know we've received one more request to speak virtually.
Okay.
If you want to entertain that.
For public comments?
Yes.
I'll entertain that, yes.
Okay. So our other public commenter is identified as Kirstonia Fillmore. Kirstonia, you will have 3 minutes to speak once I unmute you. You are now unmuted. You will need to unmute yourself on life size. The timer will start once you start speaking. Please go right ahead.
Hi, my name is Kirk Fillmore. I am an employee at the Portola Ready Mix. And earlier I heard the mayor say that Lake Forest is a pro-business city, and I really believe that. So I'm speaking, I'm just an employee, but I will say that Fred and Tracy Pedroza, they work hard at keeping the plant clean. All the employees chip in to try and make sure it's a clean environment. They do what they can to hire consultants just to make sure they're following the rules and comply. To shut down this business will hurt a lot of employees. So just wanted to add my little 2 cents in. That's all I have to say.
Thank you for your comments. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, that brings us back to item number 10, public hearing. The item is, I will open the public hearing. Madam City Manager, would you like to introduce the item?
Yes. This item is Portola Center Northeast Tentative Track Map 19138, Tentative Track Map 12-20-5392, a request to amend previously approved Tentative Track Map 17300 by refining the track map design, including reducing the number of approved single-family lots in Portola Center Northeast from 223 to 215, adjusting the width of some lots from 55 feet to 60 feet, shifting some rear lot boundaries 5 feet northerly, and relocating and redesigning the private neighborhood park. The project site is located within Portola Center Northeast, which is located at the northeastern corner of Glen Ranch Road and Saddleback Ranch Road in the Portola Hills Planned Community. Assessors parcel number 606-321-12, 606-321-13, 606-321-14, and 606-332-01. I think this is one of the longest titles we've had in quite some time. So we have a staff report that gives you an overview of this item, and so our senior planner, Marie Luna, will provide that report for you now.
Good evening, Mayor Voigt and City Council members. The applicant, Baldwin & Sons, is requesting the City Council approve this tentative track map amendment submitted as tentative track map 19138. The applicant has indicated this amendment would reduce grading costs and sophisticated buttressing required by the approved track map. This amendment would also preclude the applicant from having to obtain time-sensitive encroachment permits from the County of Orange in order to stage its grading operations. And finally, it would allow for wider lots as desired by prospective homeowners. On August 4th, 2021, the Community Services Commission, as required by one of the underlying track map conditions, reviewed the proposed park location and redesign. The Commission voted 5-0 to recommend to the City Council approval of the new park location and redesign. On September 23rd, 2021, the Planning Commission reviewed the proposed track map amendment and voted 3-1, with one commissioner absent and one commissioner abstaining, to recommend to the City Council approval of the track map amendment. Tentative track map 19138 pertains to a portion of Portola Center Northeast, a residential community located north of Glen Ranch Road and east of Saddleback Ranch Road. The Portola Center Northeast residential community was approved in 2013 under tentative track map 17300. In 2017, an amendment to tentative track map 17300 was approved. The amendment refined the community's northeast grading footprint and relocated its half-acre neighborhood park. Since 2017, 93 of the 223 homes approved have been built or are under construction. The amendment currently under consideration would further refine the grading footprint for Portola Center Northeast. It would reduce the number of approved single-family home lots from 223 to 215. This would be achieved by removing 8 lots from the cul-de-sac at the top of Whiting Ridge Drive, as shown in green, remove 2 lots from the north side of Whiting Ridge Drive, as shown in yellow, and add 2 lots in place of the half-acre park, as shown in red. In addition, the track map amendment would include shifting some rear lot lines north by up to 5 feet and some side lot lines east by 5 feet to create 60-foot wide lots instead of 55-foot wide lots as currently approved. This track map amendment would continue to maintain the geological safety required given the area slope conditions. As with the original map approved in 2013 and the prior amendment approved in 2017, this amendment also requires a geotechnical investigation to address engineering changes and requirements. The applicant's engineering team, represented by the left side of the slide, conducted geotechnical investigations, submitted studies and plans, and as is the city's practice, geotechnical reports and on-site geotechnical improvements and grading are reviewed, and they continue to be reviewed by city staff and the city's engineering consultants as indicated on the right side of the slide. In addition to the track map modifications pertaining to lot lines and lot reduction, the track map amendment would also include moving the location of the private neighborhood park and redesigning it. The neighborhood park, which has not been constructed, would be relocated from the westerly portion of the tract, as depicted by the brown circle, to the northeasterly portion of the tract, as depicted by the green circle. In addition, moving the park would allow for a 1.8-acre park in lieu of the half-acre park currently approved. The new larger park would also allow for additional amenities. In addition to the covered barbecue area and tot lot previously approved, the new park would include a tricycle track around the tot lot area, as well as a path along the entire park perimeter. It would also include a viewpoint seating area at the northeast corner of the park. Lighting of the park would be achieved through light bollards, similar to those installed at City Hall, and the occasional night illumination of the barbecue area would be subject to homeowner association approval. The park would not be illuminated to allow for nighttime recreational activities. Earlier this year, on August 4th, the park relocation and redesign was reviewed by the Community Services Commission, and the Commission unanimously recommended its approval to the City Council. Since noticing this project for Planning Commission hearing, several residents living along Malabar Road, the street located directly north of the project site and located in an adjacent community, expressed concerns over the track map changes potentially impacting their views. View exhibits prepared by the applicant in response to these concerns demonstrate that views will not be substantially altered. The top exhibit illustrates how the new park, which will sit approximately 60 feet below homes directly above, would be viewed by homes located above the park. The two bottom exhibits illustrate how the view would appear from the home located at 28622 Malabar Road. The view on the left uses the currently approved map as its basis. The view on the right is according to the proposed track map. Views are illustrated facing south, southwest, and southeast. Views are shown as they would appear 10 and 5 feet from the back of the lot. As demonstrated by the view exhibits, the change in views is nearly indiscernible. View exhibits for two additional Malabar homes are included in your packet. In summary, the proposed track map amendment, tentative track map 19138, will revise approved track map 17300 for Portola Center Northeast. It will reduce the number of single-family home lots from 223 to 215. It will shift some lot lines slightly north and east to create slightly wider lots, 60 feet wide instead of 55 feet wide. It will relocate, enlarge, and redesign the private neighborhood park, and it will continue to maintain southerly views for homes located along Malabar Road as requested by Malabar homeowners and agreed to by the applicant. These revisions are consistent with the Portola Area Plan and the development agreement between the city and the applicant. Therefore, as recommended by the Community Services Commission and Planning Commission, staff is recommending that the City Council find tentative track map 19138 consistent with the subsequent EIR approved for Portola Center and approve tentative track map 19138. Thank you.
That concludes your presentation?
Yes, sir.
Okay, do we have any public comments for this, Madam Clerk?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I will close the public hearing. Members of the City Council, do you have anything?
Yes, Mayor. Thank you. Difficult job and well done. And of course, that's my district, living in Portola Hills for 35 years now. And I know our good friend Mark Tallons is somebody that you communicate regularly. And as an engineer who's really paid attention to elevations and views and understanding that, views are never protected, since he's been there for decades as well. But I just want to congratulate city staff and all the work that went in there with the communication. And I don't want to speak for Mark and say he's a happy camper now, but I think that he is very confident in the ability that the city has shown in terms of presenting information that helps him ease any fears and concerns they have about their views. And if I was to summarize, the presentation, it sounds like, Baldwin was going to get some efficiencies. They're going to have reduced number of homes, and they're going to get a bigger park. So it looks like a win-win-win, to me, if that summarizes the aspect of this change, right?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Serbo. I would only say thank you for your great presentation. I think it's a great deal. I'm going to tell my friends that are looking to move into the great city of Lake Forest, that's the area they want to go with, that extra lot line, 5 feet, and then the extra big lot. I mean, the park going from a half acre to 1.8 acres. What a great improvement on that community. So good job on you. Anything else? I'll consider a motion. Councilman Serbo.
Also move to approve the recommendation.
I'll second that.
Did you want to use the electronic voting system?
Okay, what's that?
Did you want to use the electronic voting system
Oh,
to do your vote? Or?
Or we can do roll call right now, just whatever's easier. I would only say that my only question would have been, and you answered that in your presentation, is, obviously they're sensitive to their views, and seeing that there's no elevation height on that the views will be protected. So good job. Thank you.
Okay. Mayor Voights.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Pequeño.
Yes.
Councilmember Serbo.
Aye.
Councilmember Teddemer.
Aye.
Councilmember Motazedi.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. That brings us to discussion item number 12, potential lighting options for Portola Park. And so we've already heard from the public on this. This agenda item would discuss potential lighting options for Portola Park. Madam City Clerk, we already had that. Madam City Manager, would you like to introduce the item?
Thank you, Mayor. We have a presentation from Jonathan Volsky, our Communication and Marketing Manager, to talk about the Portola Park lighting options.
Jonathan, welcome. Thank you, sir. Shed some light on this subject.
He took one of my lines. Good evening, Mayor, City Council. We'd like to talk tonight about the options for Portola Park lighting and go through some of the history. So many of you remember that Portola Park began with some public hearings in 2014. There were 2 public hearings. We don't have great notes from those hearings, but the notes that came back from the consultant, lighting was discussed, including the desire for lighting. In 2015, the City Council approved the conceptual plan for Portola Park. At that time, they did not include lighting. They were concerned that lighting would push the project beyond its budget at that time. So they directed the staff to include lighting as alternatives when the construction contract came back. It was 2019, the construction contract came back, and at that time, the City Council declined to add the lighting, but ensured that the installation of the conduit was included in the project for future lighting. 2020, the park opened. We saw pickleball and the rest of the amenities become very popular. In 2021, City Council directed staff to perform some outreach on the potential to add lighting. On May 11th, it was Councilman Serbo that sought consensus to agendize, and then June 1st, of course, the council directed us to perform that outreach. This, of course, is the park. We have Glen Ranch Road at the top and Saddleback Ranch Road. I believe you're all very familiar, but the areas we're talking about are the pickleball courts and the volleyball court here. This is one of the earlier drawings, so obviously they're flipped. We have the dog park down here, and of course the children's play area and the sports grass area there. So since we started those outreach efforts, and I appreciate many of the council members participated in these along with us, we did a pop-up city hall at Portola Park. We did the pop-up city hall at Iron Ridge, which is the community adjacent to the park. We sent 3,300 postcards out to the Portola Hills neighborhood. And then we posted a survey on our website. And that survey had 6 questions. We asked respondents where they lived so we could track. We got 600 responses back, and about 78% of those people lived in Portola Hills. And then we did a flash vote survey, and 396 people participated in that citywide. We'll talk a little bit more about that at the end here. So the existing lighting there, as many have noted, we have parking lot lighting now that is 25-foot poles, and that's in this section here. And then we also have lighting along the pedestrian pathway, which is this loop here. The pedestrian pathway are 14-foot poles. So these are the options that were brought forth during the construction contract. The portion here is the dog park and the path to the dog park. And then, of course, the pickleball courts and the sand volleyball court are there. And then the typical, what would be the field lighting and the tot lot area is here. So here are the lighting options that were presented when the construction contract was approved. So with the dog park and lower tier lighting, those would be 14-foot poles. Option 2, pickleball and volleyball lighting, that's 20-foot poles. And then the sports field lighting would be 50-foot poles. And option 3 with the tot lot, they're 20-foot poles. Now, when that was brought to you, option 3 included both the tot lot and the sports field, so they were one option together. We put this together. The ratios are correct. These obviously aren't the style of light, but we wanted to show you the size and comparisons. So these are the existing path lights now that are 14 foot. As we mentioned, the dog park lights would be 14 feet as well. This is the existing parking lot lights at 24 feet. So we wanted to show the tot lot lights and the pickleball lights are actually shorter than the existing lights. And of course, the play field would be higher. So lighting costs, and Ms. Robertson was correct. In your staff report, I did flip a couple of these numbers. The dog park and lower tier walkway lighting would be $168,400. Those are 2019 costs. If we get direction tonight, staff will update these costs. That cost is higher because it's further, so they have to take it further, and then the 2 levels of the dog park. Pickleball and volleyball lighting is the $77,500 number, and then the soccer and tot lot lighting would be $246,000. So my apologies for that in the staff report. The flash vote was conducted between October 26th and October 28th. Residents sign up for a flash vote in advance. They don't know what surveys we're going to send them, so we have residents from throughout the city. And we did find that in this, the overall results of lighting making Portola Park more attractive wasn't terribly high, but that's not terribly unexpected. In the comments, we did get people wanting to light virtually every other park in the city and add different amenities at parks that we presume are near them. The website survey results, I have all 6 answers up here, so we'll go through them. We didn't ask a straight yes or no. We asked people their inclination, with 1 being the least likely, 5 being more likely. So question 1, would additional lighting at Portola Park would increase the opportunities for my family to enjoy the facilities? The most likely, answer 5 there, garnered 57%. Question 2, additional lighting at Portola Park would make my neighborhood more desirable. There again, we saw that answer number 5, most likely, 50% agreed with that. Question 3, we reversed, additional lighting would make my neighborhood less desirable. So less likely, number 1, actually means that people did not think it would make their neighborhood less desirable. So that was 53%, while 32% thought it would make their neighborhood less desirable. Then these were straight up yes or no questions. Would you be more likely to use the play and exercise equipment if more lighting was installed? 53% said yes. Question 5, would you be more likely to use pickleball courts at Portola Park if more lighting was installed? 60% there said yes. Question 6, would you be more likely to use the dog parks at Portola Park if lighting was installed? There, 48%, and then 43% no. Obviously, a skew there of people who own dogs probably didn't answer yes to that. So once again, those are the lighting options, and staff is leaving it to council's discretion on what steps to take next, and we're here to answer any questions. I also have, I believe, Tom Wheeler in the audience to answer if there's any technical questions.
Yeah,
so thank you.
I'm going to intercede and say that I'd like staff to come. Thank you, Jonathan. You did a great job, and obviously we're going to be light on you tonight.
Thank you, sir.
So thank you for your assistance this morning. Hey, I want to come back with the numbers, and I think that those must-go lights, 50-foot lights at a 1 soccer or 1 field play is way overkill, over $200,000, $250,000 for those lights. I think that would scare me away from wanting lights on those parks, and so I just would like to make a motion is that have staff go out from the conduit that's out there and get the new up-to-date bids on all 3 options and come back to us so that we can rationally put this together and see where we're at. And so that would be my motion, is to allow staff to come back to us with the actual cost, because this was so long ago.
So, Mr. Mayor, to clarify, you'd like estimates, like
Yeah,
updated estimates?
Well, and I want to specifically say that, and talking to the commissioner, he's a soccer guy, we don't need 50-foot lights at a 1 a practice field to where you have a U10 field where at best it's going to be kids going out there and practicing. But next week is daylight savings time. It'll be dark at 4:45 is going to start getting dark. By 5 o'clock it's going to be dark. So there'll be no playground equipment being used at that time. So come back to us with the lower lights. And Commissioner, do you think that 15-foot lights are out of the question?
I agree. I don't
See,
think that's appropriate.
and everybody that came tonight, public comments, is saying, we don't need huge stadium lights. So I think that the rational approach would be is to allow the 4 or 5 20-foot light poles around the grass open field, and that's what the bid would be requested. Good?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, before we vote on the motion, I do have some questions that may affect the scope. And so I would like to ask those.
Okay, you may be willing to ask those, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I understand, of course, the Musco lighting isn't the alternative that we're looking for. I'm mostly looking for lighting. It sounds like the pickleball courts, the volleyball court, and the dog park, right? My question to staff is, I know the dog park at Baker Ranch or adjacent to Baker Ranch has caused some issues with, people attending, after hours or after the park operations. And in this instance, I know the recommendation was to adjust park hours, obviously because of if we do put in lighting, we will have to do that. But are we saying that the lights are going to be up in all those areas or just are we picking and choosing, I guess is my question now, because that would obviously affect the scope. And then a technical question is, are these lights, the 20-foot ones, would they be LED lights?
Yes.
Yes, I'm getting a thumbs up that they would be LED lights.
Okay, that's good because those have a longer lifespan. So that would be great to see as far as our asset replacement. And then regarding picking the locations, is that up for discussion or what's everyone's thoughts on that? Because it sounds like there's two alternatives.
Councilwoman Cassidy, we're not discussing the bids that we have here are old bids. We want them to come back to us with new bids and to dish those 50-foot huge stadium lights and come back just 20-foot poles throughout the parks, the dog park, the pickleball, and it'll be phase 1, option 2, and option 3, and they'll come back to us with separate bids on all 3 of those options. So we'll discuss it at that time.
Okay.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem.
I just have a couple questions. Bringing up Mr. Murillo's point is that in 2019 we said no. What was the reason for us saying no in 2019? Was it just the money? The budget?
No, 2019 was post-budget, and there was a discussion at the previous council and previous council chambers, and there were some residents who had come out and spoke against the lights, and there was sort of a split discussion about the taller lights versus the smaller lights, and at the end, the council voted twice, broke it into 2 sections, and voted against all the lights at that time. But as I said, directed staff to ensure a conduit was installed for future potential for lights.
Okay, because like
Mayor Pro Tem, if I may, I was involved in those discussions. I was on council at the time, and really the discussion was really hinging upon those Musco lights, and so that's the reason why we kind of wanted to avoid having that, and why we didn't vote, because it sounded like that was what some folks were wanting us to install.
Okay, good. That's my concern, is that the council said something and then 2 years later, because pickleball became some rocketing sport, that we're now going to change our mind. That doesn't sit well with me. But if that was the reason, then okay, that makes sense to me.
It truly was, the fact that we were, for keep budgetary reasons, we were trying to keep it below, but we wanted to go forward with it. But the cost of Musco lights and the overlap on that, so it was kind of a scary thing. So I think that it was tabled, and that's why we put it in for future consideration for the conduit to be in. So it was always an option for the future. I think that was directed.
Yeah, I think that's smart that we do stuff like that. It's just that, like I said, I mean, if I was a resident up there and, you know, but that I'm told, hey, this is the way it's gonna be because of this, and then 2 years later, it's now, you know, it's something different, it would upset me, and, you know, I understand how he feels.
Yeah, Mayor? Yeah,
Councilman-
just a couple of comments. Since this is my district and I've walked those neighborhoods, I've received information and feedback from people saying, well, what about the noise? And what about the lights? And, you know, the noise pollution and this and that. So I've actually gone to some of the homes in Iron Ridge that back up against the park, and they've invited me up to their second floor and kind of showed me what the lookout is on there, and just trying to help with the communication of how this project is something as an amenity for the community, and always us weighing the value of that amenity for the folks and the concerns that they have. And so I appreciate you know, this healthy discussion, and also going out and getting new bids to make sure we understand the cost, and then can maybe also evaluate how this, in terms of value and the amenity that this is going to bring to, you know, to the area. So I think that, you know, we're doing a good job being sensitive to what the residents nearby, and to address that with good information that helps them understand whether this is a major concern or not, and then balance that out with the amenities for the community. So I just wanted to make sure that I invite my fellow Portola Hills folks to continue to reach out to me. I'm happy to talk to you. I'm happy to walk down there. I'm happy to see it with you and understand in balancing these concerns from both parties. So thank you.
So my motion is just the current cost and to lower those and dish those huge 50-foot Musco lights. So to where it'd be standard for the same pickleball courts that would be on the field, and so the 20-foot lights. So that'd be my motion, and to bring it back to us.
Could I just ask a question, sir?
You may.
Thank you. So that would include lighting up volleyball. I just want to clarify. That would include lighting up pickleball.
That's on bid option 1.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry, I don't remember the number,
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 3. I don't
Okay.
remember. That would include the dog parks?
Dog park, that'd be option
Okay.
3.
Then the only other one I'm not hearing about is the tot lot.
Well, the tot lot's included with the grass field.
Well, it doesn't have to be.
Well-
There could be lights just around the tot lot and not something that's throwing light all over the park in general. So I'm not,
Well,
that's what I'm asking.
right now,
seeking clarification.
that's all combined. Maybe you could spec that out, so that what it would cost. I'm okay with that, but.
Well, I'm just trying to understand.
No,
If-
no,
if-
that's
if the
all
overall-
option 2.
I guess, let me back up then. Is the intent to light up the large grass field, not with 50-footers, but
But
something
20
else?
foot, yeah.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to understand, that part of it. But I guess there's an option that says light up the tot lot, but you don't need to light up the big field. I am concerned, and I'd love to hear from staff about the parking concerns. If you start to bring a lot of people in, what's gonna happen to the community? Where are these people gonna go? Do we have the capacity to do that if we start having large uses like that? I don't know.
Well, I think that as this councilman sees it, that's not going to be a game day field. It's going to be a practice. So you'd have one team out there. And so you may have 14 to 16 kids that get dropped off there.
I
Yeah.
just want to make sure that we're clearly
Yeah.
communicating to the community as to what the expectations are going
Well,
forward. It will not
That's
be-
not foreseen as a game day field, just a practice field.
I'm trying to make sure that's made clear. If
Okay.
that's the expectation, we should announce that, so we don't have this concern about being deluged with
Inundated.
cars.
So my recommendation is that be a practice field to where we take some pressure off the lighted fields we have at the sports park, where you have inundation of soccer fields that are being overrun by too many kids out there. This would take away the Portola team that was an AYSO, or it would be an AYSO field, because we get to designate who that is. And so that would be just one team up there practicing 2 nights a week.
Mayor, if I could, so I guess, obviously pickleball is very popular, all the rest, I'm just concerned about how much capacity there is in the parking lot, and when we start to, have other demands on that simultaneously. I was up there Friday playing pickleball in the morning, and I was there was a line of people and all that. So I just want to be sensitive to that overlay, and if we do light it up, what's that going to mean? So I guess to me, I'm wanting to also think about whether we would just light up the tot lot with some lower lights just for the tot lot and still not light up the main grass field. But I'd like to hear from my colleagues, including Councilmember Serbo, since he spent a lot more time up there than I have, and maybe he's got some thoughts around that.
Well, here's kind of a real check on what goes on in the fall time. As a former regional commissioner for AYSO, with the time change, now you've got 4 more weeks of soccer remaining. And so there's only, and then what the city also does is and correct me if I'm wrong, folks, but at Heroes Park, there's fencing that's put up that really shrinks the area at Heroes Field. So now you have 100 soccer teams competing for lighting for the last 4 weeks of the season and then a week of playoffs. So that's the situation, is that, well, there's a demand for lighting during the month of November and December, and whether or not, this field with 1 or 2 teams practicing there a night, if that is, major impact, then that's what we're going to be considering or not, to put there. So.
And my point was that it's not just about the lighting, it's about the parking issues that may follow with it, and I want to make sure we're wrapping that all up together at the same time, so we're not inducing people to come and create all sorts of secondary problems that we were not contemplating.
Well, if we do the numbers, I mean.
If I may-
Go ahead, Councilwoman.
I'm so
Townsend.
sorry. I'm so sorry. There's a delay on my end. I'm so sorry to interrupt you. Well, I was going to say, and I don't know if you all agree, but maybe like a high level or a quick analysis by our traffic, department could say, maybe give us some impacts, ideas of what the impacts would be of a similar sized park that's lit, at certain hours. Since traffic and parking seems to also be a secondary concern for many.
So, if I may. I see that being a regional area practice field for 1 or 2 Portola Hills teams that have the capacity to do practice on until 8 o'clock at night. And so I don't see that it being a huge impact for the parking in that community. So.
Can we go back to the operational hours then? Because 8 o'clock at night, I mean, do these soccer teams play till that late? I don't know.
Commissioner Serbo will say that most AYSO soccer practice is over by 8:30?
Oh, yeah.
8?
Yeah.
8:30?
Yeah, and that's part of the concern too. I'm in favor of having a time frame, no later than 9 o'clock, for example, would be my time frame that the lights would be on. But yes, the soccer practice is typically for those younger ages, because you're not going to have larger kids play in that kind of a confined space. So it'll be younger kids, if we're going to have them play soccer at that field. And of course, they got to be in bed probably. 9-year-olds, what time they go to bed now? By 8:30, 9? I don't have.
Yeah, my concern is for folks with younger children, like myself, whose children go to bed at 8 o'clock. And if there's a significant amount of light pollution for those homes in Iron Ridge that are very close to the park there. I don't know how much light pollution those 20-foot lights put out, but that would probably be the area that's mostly impacted, is my guess.
So, Councilman Teddemer?
Again, I would like to consider an option where we maybe don't light up the big grass field, but we would still light up the tot lot as an alternative.
So I'll support that. I'll take that as a friendly amendment. It's my motion, so I'll ask that we separate the lights from the grass field and the tot lot, and that'll be my friendly motion. The friendly amendment, a motion.
I'm not opposed to looking at it, I'm just saying, but I want to make
Yeah,
sure that we have a light option. It just says we're going to do the tot lot, and I would like to understand the parking implications, if any.
Okay, So, but I'm just asking for, so it's gonna be on future. Are you there for us?
Reluctantly so, yes.
Here to save us?
Well,
actually-
my motion's out, and so I'm just gonna call for the vote because,
I'd like to hear from Public Works Director.
all right, go ahead,
If we could.
Tom, go ahead.
Please, Tom.
I'm getting multiple inputs here. We can come back with anything you need, if you need it divided up in any which way, form.
So we can divide the tot lot and the grass field?
You can do whatever you need. It's just more construction or less construction.
Yeah.
Right? So we can build anything you need. One of the challenges that I'll need to come back with a good estimate is really your expectations. So I've heard practice facilities at night, and we can work with community services on what that does, and we can look at parking impacts and stuff like that. I've also heard, the lower lights, the 20-foot lights. The challenge we're going to come, and part of the thing I'm thinking through as we're speaking is 20 feet lights don't light a whole lot of grass fields. And so we're going to need to hire a designer to really look at that, how much fields can you light? There's a reason why the Muscos are 50 foot high
Okay.
and light the whole field, right? So
I understand that for playing
we'll need to
a
look
game,
into that.
but the fact is, practice fields, many times have I been on fields in Mission Viejo and Irvine and other areas where they have the generator lights that come up, and there's 3 lights on there, and they light up the field.
Absolutely.
So
So
you're not-
we'll come back and look into all those different designs. I just wanted to make sure your expectations
Yeah.
were you're not going to get a stadium with 20-foot things. and
We
can
don't
come
want a
back and look at
stadium,
all
and
that.
I don't think the residents want a stadium. Okay.
Okay, so it sounds like the motion will allow us to divvy up the lighting for each area so that we can see the impacted costs rather than grouping them together. So like lighting for the volleyball, lighting for pickleball, lighting for the grass area, lighting for the tot lot.
Councilman Tazke,
And then we can
that was a
discuss it
friendly
from there.
amendment that the maker of the motion is accepted from Councilman Tedimer, so the motion's on the table with that exact thing on it, so I'll call for the vote now. Are we good?
As long as, again, I want to make sure I understand the parking. If we're going to light this place up, we're going to expect people to be there, right? So pickleball is going to be being used, dog park's going to be used, maybe volleyball. So now we've got parking going on all there. And if we start bringing soccer in there, what happens to that parking lot at that time when you start that potential layering up? That's what I want to understand.
I don't know, Public Director, can you come up and bring your crystal ball with you, please? Can you bring that back to us as we discuss this?
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing is we're going to need probably talk to a designer and talk to community services. It's all a function of, if you build it, they will come. How much are you going to program these fields? And we'll have to get all those numbers, check the parking, and see what the capacity is for that park, because it was only designed to handle so much. And so we'll come back, we'll resurrect that work again, and get a designer on board to help us walk through these things and give you
Okay.
guys all the different answers you may want.
One last comment could I make, Mayor, please?
Yes, please.
Along with that analysis, again, my example of AYSO is a 4 to 5 week window in the fall that they need lights for. So I don't want to design something, that is something that's all year round, that's only necessary for something. So maybe some alternatives or some creative solutions at other parks that we could have temporary type of lighting to satisfy, that situation. So I'm not trying to muddy the waters. I'm just trying to be sensitive to, the idea that we're talking about here with traffic and attraction at one single location for all these activities versus, well, what if at Borrego we were able to put in some temporary lights for these situations for, example, like the diesel type ones that have the lights that Scott's referring to. So I'm just making sure that we have a wide net that we're going after in terms of creativity for these solutions.
We'll put on the hats and have creativity and
Okay,
we'll
so
figure it out.
So I'm going to chime in one more time, Tom. If we can just get lighting enough to where you can see the field, it's not going to be, we're going to see lines. It's going to be basically for a practice field.
Maybe
so-
around a goal mouth or something like that.
Okay.
We'll look at different safety factors, we'll look at designs, we'll bring all that back. Maybe it's a menu, something like that. Let us dig into that and we'll put it all together and let you guys decide.
Would you like to add anything else to the motion? No, I think I've said enough. Okay. Then I'll call for the vote now.
Mr. Mayor, I didn't hear the second on I heard your motion and I heard
Oh.
the friendly amendment, but I didn't hear a second yet.
Can I get a second, please?
I'll second that.
Thank you.
And
Okay.
can we just clarify, just, sorry to,
That's okay.
so there's going to be all these multiple options for lighting scenarios and a look at some parking implications. That's a crude summary. Thank you.
Okay. Mayor Voigt,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Pequeño,
Yes.
Councilmember Serbo,
Aye.
Councilmember Teddemer,
Aye.
Councilmember Motazedi.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, that brings us to item number 13, holding virtual meeting pursuant to AB 361. So we'll be discussing our future meetings. Madam City Clerk, do we have any public comments on this? We've already taken those.
No more public
Okay,
comment.
Madam City Manager, would you like to
Thank you,
introduce
Mayor.
them?
We will have a brief report by the city attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. During the COVID-19 pandemic, a governor's executive order allowed the city to hold both virtual and hybrid, virtual and in-person meetings. To continue to have the opportunity to host virtual and hybrid meetings in a similar manner as has been permitted under the previous governor's order, the City Council must make findings pursuant to AB 361, which it must renew every 30 days. That a state of emergency exists and that either state or local officials recommend social distancing measures. Staff's recommendation this evening is that the City Council find and determine that a state of emergency remains in effect at the state level and that local officials continue to recommend measures that promote social distancing. With that finding, the council will be able to continue to hold virtual and hybrid virtual in-person meetings. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Councilman?
I don't have any questions. I do have a comment, though. So I'm glad that this is available to us, because if Jimmy was still here, I would take advantage of this, because I would want to keep him safe from COVID. And so that across the state, there's probably people that were in my position that could use this to make themselves feel better, or just to keep their family members that are at risk safe.
Mayor, if I could. So, for the attorney, we always had the option to have virtual meetings independent of this, is that correct?
That's correct.
So there's nothing about this that's for or against virtual meetings. We could do it. We could do all the things we've done over COVID. All those are available all the time, at any time, regardless of COVID.
Yes and no. So the Brown Act allows for a non-majority of the council to phone in. So you have to have at least a majority of the council here present under the Brown Act. Under the executive order, you could have the entire council phoning in. Under AB 361, the entire council could phone in. Under the Brown Act, in non-COVID times, you have to have at least a majority of the council here in order to have the possibility of a phone-in by a council member.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion.
So moved. I'll move staff recommendation.
What is staff recommendation?
Staff's recommendation is for the council to find that a state of emergency exists at the state level and that local officials are recommending measures that promote social distancing, in this case, the county.
Mayor, if I could ask a question? Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Councilman. No, that's okay. Go ahead.
Thank you. Part of what comes with this is the electronic medium that is part of this conversation, so we haven't heard about that, but that's part of it as well. We have a duty then to make available virtual for people, and if at any point there's an interruption in the broadcast that's as a result of the city, the meeting must stop. I just want to clarify what all that means.
That's correct. So the way that this meeting has been held tonight would be how it would be held in the future. And if there's a glitch on our end, we cannot move forward unless that glitch is first fixed. a technical glitch, right? So if the meeting can't be broadcast virtually for some reason, then we can't proceed with our actions until that issue is resolved.
Thank you.
I just, we've been kind of going virtual, as you mentioned, for some time now, but I know that us going virtual, if we do choose to uphold this option, which a lot of cities are doing, could the city attorney remind me, is that something that we would have to revisit every 30 days?
Yes, that's correct. The council has to make the same finding every 30 days. That finding can be placed on consent calendar, but to continue with this AB 361 option, that finding has to be made.
Okay, and is there any indication, do any of you know if the governor or when the governor plans on uplifting the executive order / health emergency order? Because I assume then once that is, well, I don't know, you can correct me, city attorney, if that is lifted, would this option still be available? Or is this only for in state of emergencies only?
Yes, so I'll answer those questions in reverse order. This is only available when there's a declared state of emergency. And so when that state of emergency is changed and there's no longer an emergency, we can no longer take advantage of AB 361 in virtual meetings. To my knowledge, there's been no indication from the governor or his office that there's any imminent change.
Okay, so he doesn't have a roadmap to when California will be lifted from this order.
If he does, I'm not aware of it.
That makes two of us, Mr. Attorney. So thank you for the clarifications. If I may make a motion, I think we should definitely look into utilizing and using AB 361 since we're currently still under the governor's executive order. And of course, we can always change that because we would have to revisit this anyway every 30 days. And a lot of cities are doing it. And yeah, that's my motion.
Councilwoman Matazzi, you can second the motion that's already on the table, which is that motion, please. So if you want to turn that into a second, will you accept it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I can second that.
Okay. We'll call for the vote.
Mayor Voigt.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Pequeño.
Aye.
Councilmember Serbo.
Aye.
Councilmember Teddemer.
No.
And Councilmember Motazzi.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1.
That brings us to, Madam City Manager, do you have any closing?
I have nothing further, thank you.
Okay, then let me go to Councilman Serbo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hope I'm not stealing your thunder, but had an opportunity on Saturday to go to Saddleback Church, and Troop 918 had 4 young men who received their Eagle Scout, and Mayor Voigt was there doing a great presentation and honoring the leadership of that Boy Scout troop, as well as the 4 men, and made presentations, and it was a proud moment for me, myself, is just looking at the youth that's going through and persevering and achieving, and this is a very big honor for Eagle Scout for them to attend. So I was very grateful to attend. Greg Raths, who's also the council member from Mission Viejo, was also in attendance as well. So I just wanted to mention that some good stuff happening in our community right there at Saddleback Church for Troop 918.
Thank you, Councilman Serbo. Councilmember Motazzi.
I have no additional comments at this time.
Councilman Teddemer. Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Pequeño.
Yes, I have a couple of things. Earlier today, I had the pleasure of touring the James A. Music Facility, watching the construction, and very impressed with what they're doing. It's going to make that jail a whole lot more secure than it was before. They're bringing it from 1962 standards to today's standards with security. Also, I'd like to thank staff for all their hard work putting the agenda together, and just all the hard work you guys do in general. And I want to welcome Annie Rada to the staff in the clerk's office. And also this weekend, on November 6th, we're going to have a Clean Lake Forest event from 9 to 11:30. We're going to be honoring veterans, past, present, and future. So if you'd like to attend, you can just go to lakeforestca.gov/Clean Lake Forest and sign up. That's all I've got.
Yeah, we did attend a Eagle Scout award ceremony at Saddleback Church, and I'm always amazed and I'm pleasantly surprised, and it's encouraging to see the scouts that are still participating in Boy Scouts of America, or Scouting of America, and see the diligence and perseverance. It takes 21 merit badges to get to Eagle, and it's a long journey, but it's kind of like the journey of life. You know, you struggled, but you stay persistent, and you finally reach your award. So I think that success comes with perseverance, and I think that's kind of what it teaches young boys. This morning, I was able to go to Veterans Park, and thank you, Jonathan. We did a presentation there, and the Marines of our local recruiting placed wreaths by each one of the podiums, the 5 podiums that are up, and what a wonderful, tranquil park that is. And as we approach Veterans Day, let us not forget the service that was performed by our veterans, because America is the land of the free, because we're the home of the brave. And thank a veteran. And we have a wonderful ceremony at El Toro Memorial Park on November 11th. And I invite everybody to come that morning and participate with us and honor the veterans of our nation.